You probably remember your last change project, don't you? Remember when everything went right and they were all so happy that the change happened, when they're all excited about the change and they all accepted what you changed? No, me neither. So often change projects change the attitude towards people about change. And this attitude often is change is bad. I do not want change to happen. However, we know that we have to change by time. The question is it possible that any organization might or may or must has to change in due course of time? And is it possible to change absolutely any organization, or are there situations where you simply have to say, no, we just stop doing this and we start over completely from a new point? This is what we're going to talk about in this episode during this week's episode. Of course, now we have to look at what are the problems, and there are numerous problems in the beginning. Often when you're successful for a very long time, the need for change is often ignored. When people see, hey, we're doing reasonably well, our business is running well, profits are there, people are happy, why change? And especially when you have a certain power on the market, and you don't have to be an international brand to have that. You don't have to be a multilingual international corporation. When you are specialized in a certain aspect of business and they only know you probably in your town, you are a brand in your town and people will go to your place. And that means due to the high trust and loyalty people have towards your brand, the negative effects of a change on which you missed might happen way later. Just think of social media. When social media happened, maybe some of the listeners still remember. First, many people said, I don't need this. Why should I go to Facebook with my company? That's completely pointless. We're not posting our lunch there. No, we're not spending a single penny on that. Other organizations were there very early and caused a chain effect. So some organizations joined the social media game rather late. And the question is, how could this happen? How could international brands miss out on this important trend? It is very important that when you have power on the market, no matter how big or small your market is, you always expect people to be loyal. However, the negative effects might be delayed, but they still happened. And in general, trust towards brands is becoming lower and lower by time. This is due to the fact that people are able to create influence way quicker. Back in the days when you started in some market, it took years, in most cases decades, to gain customers' trust. Today, when you have a good strategy, you can create a hype, you use social media, you use opinion leadership, you use influencers to create a hype on the market, and there you are. Clients are flooding in. When you're lucky and when you did it right, of course, also you need a certain budget. One of the main issues also is that often, and this is why many people are reluctant to change, is they simply say our leaders do not walk the talk. Our leaders deny the change that is much needed in today's times. And especially when leaders say we are always open for change and we expect anyone to be open for change because that is what we need today, looking on board level today doesn't look much like change, because often you see the same people from the same region, from the same family, same business club, same university, same background, same connection, that you always think, is it more where they were born and where they grew up, or is it really about skills? And then you have a lot of question marks. And when you look into the details, you have even more question marks if it's a fair game that you join. And in many cases, it's not. It is becoming more fair than it was in the past. However, it is still not fair. The main problem here is isomorphism. Isomorphism is in effect, iso is Greek for equal, morphism for appearance. We like to hang out with people who are close to us or even similar to us. And by the way, we are not an exception to this. Look in your circle of friends. When you're listening to this podcast, it normally means that you are interested in education. You do this normally during your spare time. So no one is doing your work when you're listening to this right now. And that means you are interested in personal progress. So how many of your friends are long-term unemployed, celebrate to be unemployed, and like to live off other people's money on state benefits? Probably not many, because we like to hang out and spend our time with people who are similar to us. We trust people more when we see similarities. However, when we talk about change, change needs more than copying the same approach and the same people all over the place again and again and again. So now we have to check how to do it better than what we see out there in organizations that often struggle or even fail when it comes to change. So first, we have to see change is normal. Some people say change is the new normal, but the term new normal is a bit overused due to the pandemic and everything that happened in the recent past. However, change is normal. We do not have, and some people still refer to the Levine change model. The Levine change model, which was right back in the days, always claimed you have a certain state where the organization is in the freeze state, then you unfreeze it, you do the change, and then you refreeze it. So it always says we have the state of normal, and then you become unfrozen to be in the change of state, and then you get refrozen to be in the state of normal again. And often people ask, when do we get back to this normal where we just do something for a long time? And the answer is never. Markets develop way too quickly, globalization, social media, 24/7 being on, interconnected, the internet, all these connections we have. When you think that one day will be like the other, besides the fact that I have to say, if every day would be like the other, I wouldn't enjoy what I was doing, but that might be a question of personal taste. When you see how the economy is developing, when you see how the public hand is developing, no matter where you work, change is the new normal. And change simply means that change is omnipresent. You change every day, sometimes more, sometimes less, but the state of just doing the normal thing will never come back. So please don't ask for it. Please don't wait for it, because it is not going to happen. However, leaders now have to walk the talk. Leaders have to show how did they change? How open are they for change? And please don't do tricks. Please don't do something which is only PR. When you do pink washing or green washing or whatever, X washing, it isn't change when you put one woman on the board and wave the rainbow flag during Pride Month in June. That is not change. It shows a bit of a right direction, but it's not true change. People immediately get that, and you get the backlash for a good reason. We have to see how to truly change. And I know some people will say, is it possible that really anyone changes? Because I think some people won't. Well, sometimes some people do not want to change. However, organizations do change. And that is very important. And any organization is able to change. I'll just give you an example. A multinational corporation in the Asian market, tradition of more than 200 years, had, during one of their anniversaries, by the way, a new senior manager who said, we have to break with tradition. And unlike it is common in the Asian circumstances and career ladder situations, he said there will be no automatic promotion anymore to general manager just because you turned 50. It was very common in the organization for decades, for centuries. From a certain age, you become a certain level of senior manager. For example, general manager, where you have a couple of benefits, where you have, of course, a higher income, responsibility, accountability, etc., etc. That simply stopped. And the person in their beginning 30s became the first younger general manager. And very openly, it was communicated by many leaders that they were not happy with that change. And here we are exactly with the problem. Senior managers, executives, board level people, anyone with a leadership position says, oh, you have to be open for change. Change is the new normal. We all have to change. And for the first time in 2 centuries, they say, this change is going to affect you. And the reaction immediately is, no, not me. And that is going through the whole organization, because people now will say, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Why should I change when our leaders are unable, or let's say unwilling, maybe both, to do so? And by the way, the change went through, and the change was very successful. They are now looking for skills, not for age. Of course, when you work for the public hand, when you're just there a bit longer, you get a higher salary, whatever else of automatic promotional aspects you have there. I'm strongly opposed to this system, but as a self-employed entrepreneur, of course I am. And of course, there's a political aspect in there as well. Still, you see, when organizations in very strict cultural circumstances, like, for example, Asia, with thousands of years of tradition, the organization with hundreds of years of tradition, when they are able to successfully change, and you say you cannot, we have to admit that whatever you put on the table is just a bunch of excuses, because it is possible to change, as we see right here. Of course, when you want to have bigger changes implemented, you can't do it ad hoc or just within a couple of weeks or months. You need to do it professionally. From a certain size, you need a proper project management office that accompanies the whole process. And of course, you need specialized, skilled people who help you with the change. because otherwise it can go horribly wrong. I mean, let's just assume you want to change your building or your flat. You need a new water pipe. You wouldn't say, I tried that by myself. I'm not specialized in it, but I hope it goes well. You wouldn't do that because you know you could flood your house or your flat. And when you do it wrong in your organization, you're flooding organization as well with rumors, with problems, with challenges, with situations, with a lot of nonsense that you do not want to have around only because you did not hire or use skilled people. And there are specialized people who specialize in change. As a matter of fact, an investment in change is significantly higher than it was in the past. It is normally, in most cases, in nearly every case, it is not about the subject matter you're talking about. It's always about the soft side of the game. It's always about the acceptance. You probably remember in your organization when they had this new software, no matter which software it was. The software was purchased, then it was put on your computer. You received an email that you have it now, and that was it. People used it 2.5 times, and then it was just there. The organization pays for the software. However, no one ever used it. And that is a huge issue in many organizations. And by the way, IT people, who are normally not most well known for picking people up from the personal side or collecting them where they are or meeting them in the middle or being perfectly skilled on the social level, IT people are aware of this for decades already. It is very important that you see when you have a new software, good IT departments know it is not about the tech project. Getting this implemented will be possible, but the acceptance happens with training, with coaching, with helping people, with offering support, with telling them how it works, with showing them the advantages, picking people up on the emotional, on the soft skill side of the game. And that is tremendously important. It is always about the acceptance. And when you want to change your organization, you have to take care of exactly that aspect as well. And of course, I published an article about that as well, and a couple of articles more. If you like to know more about this, just go to expert.nb-networks.com, put your email in there, and you receive a weekly newsletter, which we call Expert Letter. It's 100% content, ad-free guarantee. There's never any advertising in there. It's only about the content, and it's the only channel where you get free access to everything I publish, because sometimes certain publications are locked behind paywalls because someone else paid me to do them. So they, of course, have an interest that you pay as well, but you get free access via expert.nb-networks.com. Of course, when you now have a question and say, hey, can I just talk about this particular aspect in my organization? Yes, let's just have a chat. Drop me an email, nb@nb-networks.com, and we find a moment where we either email back and forth, or we have a phone call, or we have a Zoom meeting, whatever is the best way to communicate. Of course, when you like to talk about, hey, we need someone for training, speaking, coaching, consulting, mentoring, or project interim management, happy to chat about that as well. But completely for free, just drop me an email, nb@nb-networks.com, and we take it from there. Have a nice chat about the aspects you like to talk about. Now it is important that you apply what you heard in this podcast, because only when you apply what you heard so far in your organization, you will see the change that your organization should see, because it is important that your organization changes in the way that it is ready for the future, a future of constant change. I wish you all the best implementing the advice in your organization. And for this week, there's only one thing for me left to say. Thank you very much for your time.